It's now official. Uganda's budget for the financial year 2021-2022 budget is 44.7 trillion shillings, about 12.45 billion US dollars, up from an earlier planned 41 trillion shillings, according to the Finance Ministry. And of course, what we have had today from government and the Parliament from the budget speech. Now, for that financial year, budget will largely be financed through domestic revenue. 50%, that's about 22 billion Uganda shillings, representing a 16.2% increment. Among the priorities set by government is the Human Capital Development Program, projected to take the largest share of the budget at about 7.5 billion shillings, followed by governance and security at 6 billion shillings, and thirdly, integrated transport infrastructure and services at 5 billion. That's about 11.2%. Now, this budget, according to experts, will also see Ugandans dig deep into their pockets. But given the circumstances, we ask, will it be possible for the taxman to collect the projected amounts? And to further discuss and help us understand the budget today, I expected the Finance Minister designate, who I still expect, Honorable Amos Rugorobi. And with me in the studio already is Julius Mukunda, the Executive Director of the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. I think the word budget is in your blood now. The word budget must be in your blood.
No, it's good that these days at least a number of people are becoming like me. So
they are becoming like you.
Yes.
And it's good that by the time the budget is read, Ugandans know, and thanks to agencies like CS Bag and others, and you've done a good job, to help journalists as well to understand the budget. I've seen some of the documents that you have published. Rather more than any other agency. But Julius, as we wait for the minister, let me first ask you, from where you sit and from my introduction, this is a budget which has been introduced almost by everyone as a budget which is going to like a tax budget, of course. When you look at the state of affairs, and I asked a panel that I was interviewing during the day on whether government or the planners put into consideration the fact that we have an enemy before us, which is COVID-19, and so it could alter the planning going forward. Are we going to see more supplementary budgets coming through to sort of, if at all, the third wave comes through, like I had the minister saying, we have the third wave, imminent third wave. She was even about to say fourth. That's a joke. But did we plan for that? In light of all the plans that we have, a very nice looking document. And I was telling people we could even catapult us to fourth middle income, It's very wonderful. I looked at the things that are in that paper.
Yes.
Talk to us about your feelings.
I think like you said, it's a good feeling that by the time the minister is going to read the budget, we have all internalized it and understood exactly what is going to happen. And on the 10th of June, on the 1st June of the first Thursday of June is just a ceremony, really, to ensure that the thing is completed well. I think that's very good. But like you said, is okay. We are reading it in the middle of the second lockdown. Did government have in mind that we are going to have a lockdown? I think it was among the risks that they had planned for, but not prepared for. So you're right, like among the risks that could happen, there could be a second wave, or there could be inflation, or there could be locusts coming, those kind of things. But not actually planning, just say, okay, let's plan for it that it is actually likely to come. So that's one biggest implementation challenge that this budget is going to face from the start, that you are going to have it at the beginning within a lockdown. So the projections in terms of even URA to correct that amount of money that we want, 22 trillion, is now hanging in balance, because if this lockdown after 42 days, we add probably something else, then our capacity to collect this money definitely is going to be able to reduce. So what does that mean? It means that, again, that all these nice programs that the minister has been talking about, and you said it's a very nice document, even in the flow, because
I mean, I heard
yes,
things like extending broadband to sub-county level. I heard this is
yes, I mean,
unbelievable.
Very good things. I mean, so if, for example, we want to purchase, because we want 560 billion to purchase COVID vaccine, for example, if we don't collect enough resources, what is likely to happen? So there are two things that are likely to happen. And one of them, of course, is that we are going to increase our appetite to borrow. That is going to happen. The other thing that is likely to happen is we might want to be a bit more frugal and reduce on our appetite on our expenditure, because already the minister is saying that he has already identified 800 billion within the budget on some consumptive items.
Yes, I heard that.
And which I think is a very, and this is the spirit we started last year, I think, of there are things in the budget we can hold on and spend them somewhere in the near future when we have no problems.
I saw things like travel and all
So
that.
things like travel,
you said 800
workshops,
billion actually, yes.
special meals, corporate uniform, all those things. So you could, the 800 billion can actually be increased, and maybe you can have like 2 trillion out of that. That is that could be the second option that the minister would be having. But by and large is that this budget definitely has got some very good stuff that you, like you said, that we are likely to see. One of them, the other part, of course, for me is that the budget was actually looking at not deepening taxation, but widening it. And I think for me that's another area that was very good. That you are trying to look out at those who haven't paid and bring them into the taxation bracket. The president, of course, has hit at the fish more. It has been one of my lovely subjects. I was very happy that now these guys who are doing fish more, for the first time, they're going to start paying us money. And all of a sudden, the president said, oh, they might not like it to pay because somebody else is taxing them. So somebody is benefiting, but then for us, we shouldn't benefit. Unless we develop a strategy to add value to the fish more here.
But I want you to also appreciate that government, I think, did not first understand what fish more is. Because I watched Parliament and watched MPs who were sitting on that committee and did not understand. They are talking about fish more, but they did not even know that it depends on the weight of a fish or how big the fish is. Not all fish
have good fish more.
Not all fish more is really very good. But you understand. So government should have first understood what it is, how big, what sizes, and But then you threw and then there was consent that a certain figure was thrown on fish more, and before they knew, they were dealing with something else. So understanding some of these sectors that we want to tax is, it is good to tax, but
no, but I don't think just not on the fish.
And I think it's not only that. Yes,
it's not on the fish more. And with due respect to my legislators also, is that on a number of occasions there are certain things that you're going to debate and discuss which you have no information about, and I would encourage them to go to the library to use their parliamentary staff, because we have a parliamentary budget office.
I think they should thank fishermen. They made fish more famous.
So that
yes,
they can understand some of these areas. But I know a study was done on fish more by government, and it was based on that. The only thing I think that we didn't get properly was the quantity of the fish more that we are able to get out of Lake Victoria.
Then what kind of study was done?
out of Lake Victoria.
Yes.
But in terms of what it is, how much we can get, per kilogram, the price international market, those were some of the things that the government was able to get. So again, I think in the circumstances we are in, I would not be surprised that we need to probably return back and review the budget if this lockdown continues really. If this lockdown continues, there is a need to return back and look at the budget again so that we can be able to address the current needs.
All these tax measures, the digital stamp, all these beautiful looking measures by the Uganda Revenue Authority, which also there's a concern that the net is not wide enough in the sense that you have most of them being implemented in Kampala here. you know. So if you're talking about dictator terms, you know, then you need to widen, you need to go deeper.
But I have a problem. I have a problem with that. I think for me is that there are certain tax reforms that are not likely to be affected whether we have a lockdown or not. Because you see, with the digital stamps, with the e-invoicing, with the rental tax and the rest, I have a feeling that I think we have concentrated more in Kampala and forgot that business in this country is also in other in other urban centers.
Yeah, like rentals and
for example, if you are taxing, you are saying e-invoicing for supermarkets, because you know that's where also there's a leakage in terms of VAT. And we only target these supermarkets in Kampala. I'm telling you, there are serious supermarkets in Mbarara, serious supermarkets in Kabale, serious supermarkets in Soroti and all other big towns. It would be important, and all of them shop from the same market. Either they get everything from China or from Mombasa or from here in Ichikugo. And I think it would be important that we need to support URA to expand its taxation, its taxation agenda, to ensure that it expands and bring on board all these others, and they close the gaps. If you go on even on the digital stamps, again for me is, when you look at it, I want to see more of these beverages having the digital stamps. It's not about Uganda breweries, it's not about Nairo breweries, it's not about only Coca-Cola and the rest.
It's not about the big enterprises.
There are those other small ones that are also making money. And to drive this point home, let me tell you, 5 years ago, if you would go for an event in the village, 90% of the drinks would be this mineral water, Ruenzori, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi-Cola. But today, if you go for an event in the village, let me tell you, there are types of water in the village that you don't know about, but they are there, bottled nicely with the UNBS logo. Then you have all these other concoctions, to the extent that now the market for these big players has actually shrunk by 50%. So if you don't tax these other ones, you are distorting the market. So it's quite very important that when we are taxing, we are all taxed fairly. We can give exemptions to the startups, and that's very important. That if you are starting up, we give you 1 year or 2, and then when you get after that, then you get into the taxation bracket. But after 5 years, I think it's important the URA covers the whole country. Whoever is producing must have a little stamp.
Back to the citizens. I mean, what ordinary citizens really should be interested in. There's a very nice looking parish development model program. You know, the first time a program based on based budgeting is being implemented. And so if we want to describe to those watching now what is program-based budgeting and what is the difference? What difference will it make this time around? I know you've been really proactively working with communities as an NGO, and you know the problems that people are facing, and we'll have an old age problem of you know, funds not reaching, you know, money being absorbed. You hear this money has been taken back, and we have an implementation program. And how different is this new measure going to be, you know, parish-based development models and all that? How different is that going to be from the way we behave with monies and taking them back at the end of the day?
So one of the key problems that we face in this country is an implementation challenge. To the extent that because of that, the intended beneficiaries tend not to receive the benefits of the budget you have done. So, for example, if you say we are giving out the seeds, then the seeds probably end up going to the wrong hands. Or you provide wrong seeds. There is a person who said that even that OWC was giving out cows which are on family planning. It was a serious joke on that one. So that's the level of how communities begin to perceive the service that you bring to them.
And the president was, praised OWC. We must say that they must have done a good job.
They have done an incredible job, because I think the statistics from UBOS really gives them a credit. That we have shifted our subsistence from 68 to 39. I think it's a credit. So The Polish model for me is an incredible program if we implement it well, because for the first time we are going to see an ordinary person deciding on priorities they want to invest in. That the money they will give them, they will be able to sit and say, we want to do this. For example, if you go to a village, they will say, in my village, if you ask them, they will say, for us, I think one of our biggest problem is marketing banana, matoke. So what do we need to do? The money you are giving us, we will provide credit our boys and the girls in the businesses of matoke so that they can go and find the market in Kampala. That is their problem. And I can tell you, there is nobody who's going to sit in the Ministry of Agriculture, in any ministry, to think of that particular problem. This is their own problem which they are trying to solve by using the resources given them by government. That's number one. Number two is that for me, the Polish model is an avenue for citizens to own development. That if you say, what have you done? People at the parish, at the local level, they always be able to exhibit and say that this is what we have done. So if you're talking about improved roads, they might have constructed a small road in their community for themselves. And I think that one is very important. And lastly for me is, there is this talk about money is going to be eaten. These people have no capacity. You know, how will they? Let me tell you, corruption and lack of capacity is not a monopoly at the local government level. No, it is even at the national level. In fact, it is going to be, it's even worse at the national level. I know at the local government level, it is very easy to demand for accountability. Simply because you have the sub-county chief within you. When the money comes, he will display it on the notes board that the money has come and its budget already displayed. And it is going to be easier that these people can follow up their accountability. I have seen it work, and I'm shocked that when the money comes, people are asking, what are we going to use this money for? When the executive assistant makes a decision, follow it up, then people begin to follow those projects one by one. If they find it's not moving, they're ready to ask what is happening, which is extremely very difficult at the national level. So for me, that's one way of ensuring that communities at the grassroots level can benefit directly from the national budget. And there is nothing that can express this easier and implement it than the Polish model itself.
Julius, let's look now, come back to businesses which have perhaps taken the biggest hit.
Yes.
Because of the pandemic. And when you look back at the first lockdown, government had a very good plan. Sat down with small and medium enterprises, sat down with the business community, and a plan to put money in the Uganda Development Bank and put money in Microfinance Support Center, put money in there, and give confidence to businesses that, look, you will be able to do business, you'll be able to bounce back, you'll be able to recover. But along the way, when we spoke to some, save for these donations from the European Union, which were availed to help hoteliers, and then by the time we realized the business community downtown and people who own small businesses were crying, were saying, where exactly, who took the money, where did it go, where did we get it from? And then you have UDB saying, look, this is not a donation.
It's not for you.
It's not for you. It is for large business.
For
but
the
when we
big
spoke
boys
to
and
large
girls.
businesses, I spoke to someone who owns a hotel. Said they wanted security, which is worth double the hotel that he owns, and this was in Fort Portal. And then you have a Microfinance Support Center, which needs people in groups of 5, and then other collateral. So at the end of the day, we had funds that were not clearly, we could not discover really who took what until Parliament now sat, and then we got to hear people build hotels and malls and all that. So are we able to help these businesses now with even a worse situation of a second lockdown, to help them or even give them confidence that, look, you're going to stay in business? I have seen some indicators in the budget talking about that. But from where you sit, really, are we able to salvage businesses going forward and make sure that, because this economy really depends on these SMEs?
I think let us be very candid to ourselves and say that the experience we had during COVID, it's like for me, I look at it as an opportunity to get naked and know exactly how you look like, so that you can be able to know where to patch yourself or to improve on yourself. That was our first lockdown. That it was able to show to what extent can we be able to help ourselves internally. And that's why you find that we can now know, for example, that with nothing, agriculture can still grow and support us. That's number one. Number two is for our businessmen and women, is that there is no free lunch, that everything must be worked for, and that our government does not have all that capacity to help everybody. That in this second lockdown, we need to begin to think now amongst ourselves and say, how can you help yourself? Not think that government is going at the end of the day to bring a blank check and give it to you. Like I hear some countries that you know, a check comes in the post office, you go and pick your check from the post office, it has arrived. It's not going to be like that in this country. Why? Because we don't have the money or the money to do that. What is likely to happen, I think, for me, where businesses can benefit?
I've seen some policy actions.
Yes, I mean, open cash is not there, but policy-wise, yes. For example, I have seen a very good one of saying that they are going to increase loan repayment and rescheduling.
Yes, restructuring of loans once again, and it has its own problems.
Up to September.
Yes.
But your saloon lady and your mechanic workshop and your carpenter do not have those loans from these banks. They don't. Again, it is still for the big boys and girls who will benefit from that. They said there is 103 billion that is going to go to Uganda Development Bank. Thank you very much. Again, UDB mandate is not meant for small and medium enterprises. DB mandate is for large manufacturing. So you cannot send a SACCO, you cannot send a carpentry man with a turnover of 10 million to go and get a loan from UDB. You are changing its mechanism. The only solution we have is to pump money to you, Posta Uganda, or to put money in Uganda microfinance support, so that people can be able to generate, to get money from there. So for me is for government, let it look more at policy level to give more relief to these small businesses. In fact, I would have to see more on relief on these taxes, because these small businesses also pay some taxes. Maybe that's where the relief can come from. But it again, it's going to be very difficult, because government will need resources to be able to run at the same time. So we are between a hard rock and a stone in terms of to what extent can government give relief to the businesses. But what government can do, and which it has the capacity to do,
is what you'll tell us when we come back from the break. Because I was also about to say that government still has a lot to do, because it has date to pay, which apparently is soon touching the red light. And we will take a short break. This is On the Spot, and we're discussing budget with Julius Mkunda from the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. We have another guest in waiting, but we'll be waiting until that guest comes. But if he doesn't come, we'll go on with the discussions. This is On the Spot. Welcome back. This is On the Spot, and with me is Julius Mkunda, the Executive Director for the Budget Advocacy Group, and it's called CESBAG. You're welcome once again, Julius. So before we went into the break, you wanted to tell us what government can do, and but I also wanted to remind you that before you tell us what government can do, there are leakages. Or there are excessive, and the government is now struggling. When you look at some of these documents, this is a fact that government is struggling with excessive expenditure. Our expenditure is way up in the roof, and when you compare with the revenues. So that is one problem that you have. So before you tell us what government can do, things like the cost of administration. Government has a lot of good things around it, which maybe it could do away with. I don't know, in your opinion. But also the problem of And maybe after that, we will talk about the problem of these whole tax holidays and the problem of, these double taxation treaties that we have. There are very many leakages where money is leaving the country and that otherwise should be going into the taxman's pocket. Plus, things like, tax incentives, unfair incentives that the IMF, I think also I saw the IMF warning about all these good things that we are doing for people, 10 years, 15-year tax holiday. So what do you think, how do you think government can close these gaps, be able to, perhaps realize its targets and give better service delivery?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, because you see, if our government is a bit extravagant, then there is no way it's going to address the problems that we face as citizens, including businesses. And you are right to talk about the administrative costs, because when you look at 5 years ago, 2015-16, the wage bill was at 3.3 trillion. And now we are budgeting at 5.5 trillion. You can say that's still okay. Maybe we had some inflationary increase and a few hiring. But the non-wage increased from 4.5 to 10.9 trillion. It tells you that huge amount of money is being spent on administration, on running the government. And that's why the first problem is that we are spending so much money on running government than on delivering services.
I've seen latest model cars being driven by government.
Exactly.
Mercedes-Benz, the high-end brands.
On an average, even the money we send to government.
Are we a rich country? I don't think. We must be a rich country.
No, you see, even if you are rich, you don't need to. You can't be rich and then you go and borrow and then you say you are rich. You are rich because you get money from your own and then you buy those things. So that's one of the biggest problem they are facing, because those Range Rovers you are talking about, that is the 15 trillion we are telling you that you are spending on the mini costs. Now, like for example, all these ministers that we have seen, everybody will have to buy a brand new vehicle. So if you are buying from a brand new vehicle, you will not tell the members of parliament, don't buy cars.
The range of how much?
500 million Uganda.
Those huge Land Cruisers.
Those 100 cruisers, yes.
Driving monsters.
You will not tell the LS5 chairperson of a district not to buy a car. No, he will also want to buy a car. And that's why the chain goes down and have this huge administrative expense. And I think the challenge that this government has is on how to control this public expenditure. And if we don't do it, somebody is going to force us to do it. I can tell you that. Because we are being, unless oil comes out, then we would say, okay, we are fine. So I think that's number one in terms of the challenge we face, on what we can do to address the challenges we face, is to reduce on our public administration. The second thing that we can do as a country also is to look at our debt management and sustainability. Because currently, as of December 2020, our debt stood at $17 billion. And that was 49.1% of our debt to GDP. I am not a fan of that indicator, of that threshold, because me last year, I told people, I said, look, it is not a question of if, it was a question of when. And I have been vindicated, because the projected figure now of our debt to GDP is currently standing at 51%. Point something.
51%.
51. We are already above the threshold of 50. So why? Simply because is that you cannot face this pandemic. You cannot face these the locusts that happened in eastern Uganda, the floods and the humanitarian crisis, and you say you will not borrow money because you are still under 50%. That's impossible. Our biggest challenge actually is that the money we borrow, we are not able to utilize it the way it should be. To the extent that the money we borrow, we pay interest on it, even when it has not been dispersed, because we don't have the absorption capacity to finish it. And that's why now my concern right now is on the interest payment, because now we have a 4.6 trillion on interest payment, which is the second largest share of our budget, which is very big. So that, for me, is one of the key challenges that government must address, So if we want to address the current situation, let us improve our absorption capacity, deliver these projects, because these projects are supposed to deliver services. If you have transmission lines, finish them in a time so that electricity can be delivered. If you have a road, the Northern Bypass, for example, it's now 20 years down the road, yet it was meant to be finished in 5 years. Finish it so that we know that traffic jam in Kampala can reduce the cost of transport, for example. So if you don't do that, then our problems increase. The other thing that government can do actually to help us, to help small businesses, is to provide us affordable credit as the government. And say, like how we have provided the agricultural credit facility, provide one for businesses. And it has been working well with the Bank of Uganda. Provide one for business, for small enterprises. So that you leave UDB to deal with the big boys and the girls in the businesses. That can work. The other element is the electricity tariffs, because they're extremely very high. Everybody complain about them. Even the president himself has complained about high electricity tariffs. To the extent now he's saying, I'm going to transmit power from the dam directly to the industrial zones and bypass Umemi and do it myself. So an indication the government can do those things. It's not rocket science, it's not hard, but in these times, in these hard times, those are some of the things that government can do to help us move on.
I've seen the policies like the construction of industrial parks and all these production centers in the budget today that would otherwise promote growth. These growth corridors that government has put in place, all that, are these long term, or we are going to see them spring up as soon as possible, of course also bearing in mind our speed of doing things here?
I have a challenge on that one, because
the growth corridors?
The growth corridors,
yes.
We are doing too many things at the same time. And I think that is where we get a challenge, because if you want to do all those growth corridors, you want to finish up all the storage facilities, you want to rehabilitate the standard gauge railway, you want to buy right of way for the standard. You want to rehabilitate the meter gauge railway, but also do a right of way.
You want to construct the standard gauge, which is way off the deadline and the construction time.
You want to do Kampala Jinja Interior Express Highway. You have not finished the MPG Busega and also the Northern Bypass. There are so many things.
Very ambitious. Very ambitious.
Couldn't we sequence and say we are starting with one corridor, when we finish it, we'll add another corridor when we finish it? It is okay. Rome was not built in one day. But because we cramp all of these things together at the same time, it puts pressure on our resources as a budget. And that makes us want to now begin to borrow money. And definitely now when we borrow more money, yet our capacity to absorb is a challenge, then most of the projects begin to stop.
Let's talk about some of those leakages that I mentioned, like tax holidays, and is there? You sit with some of the experts in the Ministry of Finance, and you've discussed with them about these leakages here and there. The country is losing billions of shillings in these monies going out without knowing which the companies are not paying tax, because we have the double taxation agreements and all that. Is there a way, and we were warned on that as well by the International Monetary Fund, is there a way those can be dealt with using the current policies to try and save some money through those channels?
I think one of the biggest challenges that need to be streamlined, which I know the Ministry of Finance is looking out, is on the management of tax holidays and incentives, which at first used to be that if you're a foreigner, then you are the one to access these tax holidays. Now they have been able to put an elaborate procedure on who should access the tax holidays and who should not access the tax holidays. The only problem that is still remaining is assessing whether the tax holiday gave you what it was, what you've actually delivered on it. Because if, for example, they said to access this tax holiday, you need to have employed this number of people, invested this capital, and have this type of turnover, have you achieved that? Or if you haven't achieved it, we should cancel that tax holiday. That is a framework that has not yet been put in place. But right now is that they were able at least to bring out the guidelines, and that's very transparent, which I think is very good. Now I think the most important part is to begin to evaluate those that were given tax holidays. Have you actually delivered on them? We need a framework to say that we gave you a tax holiday to deliver on these 3 major important milestones, and you have not done so. So bye-bye. In that way, we would save government money. And of course, with tax holidays, we cannot say we stop it as a country. Why? Because Tanzania is doing that. Rwanda is doing that. Kenya is doing that. We are in the middle of them. So for any businessman, once they are coming and they find that there's an extra coin being saved in any other country, they're likely to stop there and don't come to Uganda. But for sure is that when a business person is coming, one of the things they're looking out for is infrastructure. Not tax holidays actually come deep down in terms of the priorities that they want. But because in the whole country that's what we are flagging, we tend to lose money out of that from that perspective.
We have seen, yes, go ahead.
So you needed to ensure that, for example, I would have loved to see Uganda bringing the rest of the East African countries to have a harmonized tax regime on tax incentives, so that we can compete in other areas, but not one is giving more than the other, and then we have this unhealthy competition. And yet the people who are giving these holidays really are not even going to spend this money here. They're just going to spend this money out of this country. So I think that in that way we can help our economies to work if we can have a harmonized East African tax incentive regime.
There is also advice that if we or government can look at reducing its, because taxes keep increasing, which is okay because government wants tax and wants money to run business. But also there's advice that if we could reduce on the tax and then bring more people into the bracket.
Yes.
Around the country.
Yes.
That could
yes,
really
yes,
work. We apparently have a few people paying tax, and thus, and then others are looking at tax as punitive rather than they don't even know it's an obligation, a civil obligation to pay tax. Is that workable really under the circumstances? Because
Rugorobe has just told us today that the payee register has increased from 1.3 to 1.5
yes.
people. And 74% of Ugandans have some sort of work somewhere. So it tells you that there are so many people who are not in the taxation bracket. In fact, if all of us were able to get into the taxation bracket, then there would be need even to reduce the tax further. Because you see, with tax takes on your surplus income.
In fact, someone was suggesting borders should be
on your surplus income.
Yeah.
So for me is, if more people get on board, then the tax burden also reduces on an individual. Because now government will be able to collect more by making sure that at least there are so many people who are paying these particular taxes. And that's why for me from the beginning I'm saying, it is very important to invest in collecting money, in collecting these taxes. Because when you don't do it, then you will remain with, we have NTV here, they have been giving us 60 million and that's it. Because NTV want to run away. If you know, so these companies, you know that they are the ones that are there, so you are the ones to tax them. So I would believe that you need to go out and see those that are not there. I had information, for example, which said that before they brought the digital stamps, there was a company which was providing a return of 10 million per month. But with the digital stamp, it started bringing above 100 million Ugandan shillings. What does that mean? That was a leakage in the system. So why don't we then invest more in ensuring that all companies in Uganda that are producing have got digital stamps? So in that way, we wouldn't even be suffering with the running at people saying that taxes are so high, having difficulty in paying. No, but because some people have not been able to pay their rightful amount of tax, that becomes a problem. So you need to do that deliberately and say, let us invest in collecting taxes, provide the right human resource, provide the right technology, provide the right instruments to ensure that people can be able to collect this particular tax. I have seen that, for example, now you can go on the website and apply for TIN and you get it immediately. Those are some of the things you need to do very quickly, so that it is easier for somebody to get a TIN and they start paying their taxes. Rather than to get a TIN, you have to go to your annual offices, then you get a form, start filling it there. And
the process is so long. And
it's so long.
It has quite a very nice application where you can check your TIN in case you don't even know it. You will get it there and then so immediately.
That is the way you need to have the population be able to become easier to pay taxes. I have challenged you actually on so many occasions. I have said, when you are importing goods in this country, they start listing for you taxes: import duty, stamp duty, withholding tax, VAT, then environmental fee. I said, that is for your own benefit. Me as a taxpayer, just tell me, according to the things you have bought, please pay 50% over the taxes, period. I will repay my 50% of the goods. You away. Go and deal with your division of taxes where they are coming from and where you want to pay from. It becomes very easy for somebody to be able to pay taxes. But somebody lists for you all those taxes, and because there are so many, even you begin to think actually whether you are supposed to pay all these type of taxes. So those are some of the things that you can make people comply. You can increase your voluntary compliance of people to be able to pay the right amount of taxes.
I have seen the president also saying, asking doctors to go to the village, go to sub-counties, go to health centers and work. And we already know that midwives there and a few nurses there, male nurses, have a huge workload, on them, and which is also contributing to maybe being underproductive, or perhaps maybe even death of some of the people back there. The remuneration, paying the people at the front line, doctors, and especially in this era. And we have seen that problem, medical interns fighting here and there. But that has been happening, and we don't know what is happening in those health centers that the president is talking about. Is this practical?
It is very, 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 very practical. It is just a question of increasing local government financing, because currently local government financing around 4.6 trillion, which is around 14% of the entire budget. And but you see, what the president said today was sort of pointing a finger at the Ministry of Health and even all other ministries. How can we say we don't have doctors in our health centers when we have doctors on the street for all this period? It's sort of like, like letting you guys that please just pull up your socks. Because if we have vacancies in the districts, in health centers, but we have doctors on the street that we are unable to
employ.
And I'm also of the information that actually sometimes money for recruitment is there, but the politics of recruitment stop the recruitment of these people. I know of a district in this country where the cow wanted to start recruitment, and the district council told him, please, you are not going to recruit now until our daughters and sons have finished school. Is that true? For 2 consecutive years, the district capacity to recruit has been hampered by the council. I'm hoping that now
they're waiting for their kids.
Yes, I'm waiting that the council, the new council now can resolve that. It is there. I was in a shock that it can actually happen. The same things actually happen also at the national level. That somebody can be in an acting position perpetually. You are an acting commissioner for 5 years, 6 years. You are an acting assistant commissioner for. Why can't people recruit? Because in any case, when somebody leaves a job, there is a vacancy already budgeted for. It's a question of promoting the other one, or you get a new recruitment. So for me, the president was actually trying to let people know about recruitment in central government. That these people have been in acting position for 5 years, which is even against the law, should be resolved immediately. That's number one. Number two, of course, it's also the question of ensuring that we rationalize. Because when we rationalize, it would mean that we remove duplication in ministries and departments. That's one. Number two is that we reduce on wasteful expenditure. But at the same time is that we can actually create even more responsible sector within the ministries. So for me, the president is saying that we take doctors at the sub-county. It can be done because we know that the wage bill of Ministry of Health can actually manage to bring more doctors on board. But the only question I want to ask myself for me is, how come that we don't have doctors in these centers? We have money for recruitment, but we have not been able to recruit these doctors, these nurses, these midwives. The other part also I think which is affecting this section of doctors are the interns. We know very well that you will never be a doctor if you have not done an internship. And that is the stage. Actually, I know very well, actually, the interns are the ones, some of them running Murago University. That these interns, if actually you don't make sure that they go through the internship, you are able to find a shortfall in the doctors that you need. So I think the process also of ensuring that we get the quality of civil servants that we need, the system that is there must be facilitated properly. For example, the interns, the medical interns, we must facilitate them properly so they can be able to finish the internship. After that, then they get deployed. It is one system that is very clear from the beginning that if you don't go through the internship, you will not be a doctor.
Thank you very much, Julius. We will now take another short break and we'll be back, and we will be talking this time about looking at industrial, agriculture or agro-industrialization, which has been allocated over 1 trillion shillings, I think about 1.6 trillion shillings. So we look at some of the gains that the country has made over time. We will take a short break. This is On the Spot. Welcome back. This is our budget conversation on the spot. My name is Malcolm, and I have Julius Mukunda from the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. And just before we went for the break, Julius, I wanted you I wanted us to delve, into this topic about agro-industrialization, which has taken a huge chunk also of about 1.2 trillion. We've seen a lot of work done already. Looking at the gains that have been made, I have seen the CDC doing a good job. I have seen NARDs, going out of the way to supply, tractors, a few small-scale machines, to reaching out to farmers, trying to, put a hand on some extension services and doing this. And at least I've been to the field, seen government trying to put an effort in these tea factories, fruit. I've seen Teso fruit factory, the president himself opening it up. Though it is lacking some other lines of production, and that there are now plans to put more lines of production. We've heard of Zombo, Luero, all these processing units, and now the new measures to add money into this channel of development. It's how, if you look at the gains, if you look back, do you think we've done enough? Have we really, do we have a positive report now to channel us to more work and putting in more money? Is it realistic?
I think for agriculture really is that we, even without so much government intervention, it has been able to roll itself out. We are a country which is endowed by 2 seasons in a year. You just can grow anything you want with no problems, except that now, of course, climate change is catching up with us. But by and large, if you look at Uganda and compare to other countries in terms of its climate, in terms of its agricultural capacity, we are still very good in that particular area. And also government coming in to provide the inputs are very welcome, supporting the NARO to give us new varieties that are drought resistant, disease resistant, is very welcoming. We had a problem with the tick. Now I understand that we're going to start commercial production of the tick vaccine. so that at least our cattle corridor, you know, of in Western Uganda, people can, at least the cattle markets can open again, and people can start benefiting from their cows and goats and sheep and all of that. And you mentioned right about the value addition. I think government really has put in a lot of money to add value to agriculture. You know, the Sorokh factory. And when you look at, you can look at those big things, but there are other small things that are being done at a smaller scale. When you see somebody packing bushera in a bottle, that's value addition, because he has turned the maize flour or the millet flour and packed it in a bottle, and he's selling it in the supermarket. If you see people who are packing kwete, you know, it's being packed. People are packing, you know, mwenge mugere, tonto. It's being packed in bottles.
And banana juice.
And banana juice from Bushenyi. I mean, I remember it's Jakana who had started it, and I don't know where it had gone, but the people of Bushenyi took it on banana juice seriously. You find it in the supermarket, and there are more other products of
energy giving.
Energy
giving. The ones that UNBS was fighting. It's like, no, you can't.
You know, entirely.
I think it must be a form of Red Bull, how did Akandi? You know, I think these are businesses where government really could tap into.
If you go in villages, people have really become innovative and added value to agricultural products. And I think the government is not really taking advantage of this, of supporting them, for example, to show that they are of quality and of standards. And like the president said, you don't need to send substandard things abroad. You don't need to poison people abroad, as if poisoning yourself is okay. No. So I think there is that revolution in agriculture of adding value, and it's an area now government needs to invest heavily in controlling quality, so that what we produce is safe for consumption, but at the same time we can benefit from the markets that the government is talking about. So the issue of standards is very important. But not standard actually, for me the first issue in agriculture that we are facing is the market. Because, you know, we tell farmers, please grow bananas, grow pineapples, grow everything. And at the end of the day, this farmer, you go to Karerwe and you buy 10 pineapples at 10,000 Ugandan shillings.
They're being sold at 5,000.
I mean, so how much, what was the get price for the farmer?
It discourages production.
It completely discourages production and farming. But if we had a market for pineapples and we tell the farmer, I usually give an example of the white goats from Saudi Arabia. If government went Saudi, if the Saudis came and said, for us we want goats, but we want white goats, then the farmer will go and rear white goats. But we are telling farmers, please rear goats, and they will rear black, blue, tall, short, whatever type. But there is no market for that. At the end of the day, the farmer is stuck with the goats. He ends up selling the goats to the neighbor, and he gets just peanuts. So the same thing with the pineapples, the same things with the apples, the same things with avocado, all the things. We must identify the market, know what the market wants, and then we come back and tell farmers there is a market for squared watermelon. And then the farmer will do that. So that's our number one. So if we don't do that, however much we know that there is a huge market of avocado somewhere, but the avocado that we are producing cannot fit into that market, we will never benefit from that particular market. So the first thing I think for me is government to invest heavily in identifying markets and connecting farmers to those particular markets. So then you come to standards now, because like the president said, you are not going to poison the people with aflatoxins, for example. And this farmer doesn't know even what aflatoxin is all about. So it is very important that we help our farmers to improve on their post-harvest handling mechanisms. And that's where I want government to invest the most, because a farmer must know that after I have harvested my maize, I should not dry it on the ground, just like that. I need to be able to put it on a trampoline so that it can dry properly and it's clean, it doesn't contain any toxins. So that by the time I want to sell it, then it's clean and UNBS has no problem with it. I'm glad that the government is going to provide storage facilities.
Yes, I've seen, you
Yes,
know,
and I think for me it's very important.
to
My only
build
challenge
silos
there
and all
is
that.
who should be doing that, government or private sector?
The cooperatives.
Because I'm told currently that actually private sector has got storage facilities running at a capacity of not more than 30%. So why then should we now go ahead and build other storage facilities? Yet we already have these. Couldn't we have some private-public partnership arrangement so that the private sector can be able to evacuate farmer products and keep them? I think that's something that the government needs to look at, see where it stops and where private sector also can
I think
start.
Julius, what we forget also is putting money in, you know, in the value chain. That value chain you're talking about, but a little bit below harvest. You know, a little bit below harvest and putting money in that chain. You know, inputs. We still have a problem of people using wrong pesticides or perhaps fake pesticides, or even those who cannot afford them, or even because they are not even being supplied in that part of the country. And then you have people who are lacking or have never even seen a district commercial officer or perhaps even an agricultural officer, so because we keep creating, you know, districts and cities and all that, and so all these putting attention into the value chain is still lacking, and then you come to harvest and building silos and storage facilities and all that, but the guy in the farm, and I've seen government, I think I've seen a program to give out hose. I don't know, why are we still talking about using hose to dig in agriculture, really? I think that is an insult to this country's agricultural potential,
yes,
that you still think that
yes.
you're going to give people hose to use. I don't understand that.
And
I think maybe we still need them, or I don't know, maybe I don't
no,
understand.
it's a question. It's a question
I
of
grew up
which,
seeing my father using hose, and now things have changed.
it's a question of real understanding what farmer needs are. And I can tell you is, in this country, if you tell a farmer there is a market for avocado, please produce, farmers they will not need your extension service. They will not need your seedlings. They will not need your land. They will go and look for their own money, invest it, and produce that avocado and sell it in the market you have guaranteed them. If government, because like maize, for example, maize, they tell farmers, please, there is a market in Kenya. Everybody grows maize, and the price reduces from 900 comes to 200 shillings per kilogram. The next route, farmers are not encouraged to produce any more maize. So the issue for me is we tend to think so much and begin to invest on wrong items in terms of agriculture. If the hose you are talking about, if you asked farmers, what do you need? I think hose would even come last, because a farmer in this country, if he has no market, he wants to guarantee the price. And that's why sometimes we're asking government, can we please let us go back and revisit some of the policies that we are doing? Because surely, why would a kilogram of maize come to 900, and after farmers have produced in a plenty, then it immediately comes to 200 because of our production? Because that's when the government should be able to come in and say, as your government, we are guaranteeing a price of 500. So that even when a farmer is producing, they already have in mind what kind of the amount of money they're likely to get out of the produce. So for me, these are some of the things that government needs to do in terms of its policy and legal framework. To say, for example, government is going to evacuate maize at 500 shilling per kilogram. So that if there is anybody who's going to bring more than 500, it is okay. But for heaven's sake, let no farmer be paid less than 500 shillings per kilogram when you have a government. And yet we know that even when this government buys this maize, its capacity to sell it out is so big, because you'll be able to call your counterparts in Zambia, in Zimbabwe, where there is a drought and everything, and you tell them, "By guys, I have my store here, I have maize, and I can be able to sell you the maize." So For me, government really can be able to do that.
Julius, as we step out, the perils of relying on oil as the only source, the only resource for development. You spoke about it. They said, unless oil comes out of the ground, and I have my own problems with oil. The other day, prices were plummeting, and the world had other, you know. So emerging oil producers or new producers of oil, Uganda is. Can we peg our hopes on oil? Because when you look around, at least in secret, some people will say, we have oil. Can this country peg hopes on oil? That even countries which we know, countries which have been dependent on oil, which are suffering. South Sudan, we have Nigeria, have seen queues of people waiting to take fuel. And this is one of the largest oil crude producers. Can we peg our hopes on oil really going forward? Or we should indeed put money in all these sectors, agriculture, focus, and so oil can supplement our development aspirations?
I mean, like,
as we go briefly.
I think for me is let us learn from the other countries why they are having trouble with oil, so that we don't fall into the same problems. But my single biggest advice is that until that oil gets out, let us not put too much concentration on it. We have the other resources that we can really work on, and they give us even more returns than the oil that we are talking about. But as a nation, it is very difficult to sit on a resource and you don't want to exploit it. I know the need, the feeling of wanting to always dig up and see exactly what is there, so that you can get your money out. But I would advise the government, as of now, let us concentrate on how we can get the oil out, and let us not put most of our attention and resources onto that particular area. I am glad that this oil thing is now a contract between the government and the private companies, so that we can still remain here on our key resources like agriculture, develop it better, so that we can be able to get returns out of it. So that by the time oil comes, I don't know when it's going to come, because we keep on shifting the date of it to exploit it.
Now that most of the
now that most of the contracts have been done,
cost-sharing agreements,
and I think which is very good. And now all the prospects, people are prospecting around it. So by the time we finish the pipeline from Uganda to Tanzania, and then it starts flowing,
which is yet to be construction is yet to be started. Thank you very much, Julius.
Thank you so much.
And with that talk, we wind up on the spot, and we hope that you picked a thing or two about the budget and where our country is heading, at least economic-wise. But we urge you to please adhere to the SOPs. Keep your mask on, eat very well, feed well. We have very good food, which is very organic, which is not in other countries. And people are now talking of Eugazenica, using Kamulali and all those things so that you can boost your immunity. Please keep boosting your immunity and play around and do your exercises, and we'll all stay safe as we listen to government on what the SOPs are. Thank you very much, and that was On the Spot. Stay tuned. This is NTV.